Hello and welcome to another episode of Discover with Spinati. I'm your host, none other than Dr. Spinati. Today we're talking about whether or not you, my friend, are a fufu. On episode number 133, because we've been hammering at it for 133 days straight. So why did I decide to want to talk about this concept of being a fufu? Well, it's a term I coined myself because if you look it up, that term doesn't actually exist. So I came up with it because to me, a fufu is someone that is the opposite of what a man is supposed to be. A fufu has several characteristics, and he has 8 of these characteristics, which I came up with. And these things I can probably add on to it later on, but these are the quintessential things that you need in order for you to be a fufu. Now, what is a fufu? If you imagine yourself what a warrior is, if you put yourself and just close your eyes and just think to yourself, what is a warrior? Someone that other people can depend on, someone that does not back down from challenges, someone who is stoic. A stoic is someone who doesn't complain, someone who no one knows about his problems, someone who, irrespective of what happens to him, still keeps going, someone who's not swayed by other people's thoughts and opinions and criticisms, someone who has a sharp laser focus on his target. That is a warrior. Well, the fufu is the antithesis of all of that. What I describe a fufu is, because yesterday I was talking about this with my family, and I said a fufu is someone who is in between the stage of being a boy and a man. So he's neither a boy and he's neither a man. He's in no man's land. And if you know that term, no man's land, you'll know the reference is from war. It's from when they had trenches. They had to dig trenches and they had 2 trenches opposing each other. And the no man's land is that area in between the 2 trenches from the 2 enemy lines. So when someone crosses and goes into no man's land, that's an area basically that you're going to die in because you're in an open field of just bullets. So that's what no man's land is. It's an area of weakness. It's an area of vulnerability to the point of loss guaranteed. That's no man's land. And that's what I describe to everyone as fufu. Now, how do you not become a fufu? Because obviously no one wants to walk around and be fufu. Now, another thing that actually, before I tell you these 8 principles of not being a fufu, okay? Actually, the 8 principles of being a fufu, so the opposite would be of how to be a warrior. But we're talking about how to be a fufu. Now, what is a fufu from another perspective? I looked it up yesterday, and actually a fufu, and it's pronounced fufu, is and if you're from Nigeria and you're listening to this, correct me if I'm wrong, but from my research, a fufu is a pastry. It's a Nigerian pastry that is malleable, crushable, that is formed to whatever you want. It's soft. It's it's got very little texture. And so that to me describes a fufu, right? Very soft, malleable, changeable to other people's, poundings, doesn't resist. That's a fufu. So there you go. So the term fufu is even used in Nigeria to describe a pastry that can be easily malleable and so on and so forth. Okay. So here it is, the 8 principles of a fufu. So if you're looking to be a fufu, pay attention. Number 1, he does not keep his word. So that task list that you have, that you've written down, and you don't actually do it because you don't feel like doing it? You are being a fufu by not tackling that task list. What is stopping you from doing it? Cue in your excuses. So that's the first one. Number 2 is that he wastes time on very unproductive things, such as YouTube, such as any kind of social media, Netflix, TV, whatever you want to call it. Okay, it just does things that are not productive. Obviously, spending time with friends and family, that is not considered unproductive because, you're developing your social skills and, you're actually getting out there and meeting people and so on and so forth. So that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about anything that's isolating you away from everybody. That is 9 times out of 10 unproductive. Third, he's out of shape. A fufu is out of shape. There's no way that a warrior could be out of shape. And so the opposite of a warrior is in shape. So the opposite of a warrior is out of shape. And so that's the third one. So if you're eating that bag of chips when you're watching this, or you're eating some high sugar laden cereal right now in the morning because it's currently 6:41 a.m., you should put that down because that's going to make you out of shape. The fourth is he is swayed by other people's opinions because people have criticisms and opinions like the weather has rain. So there is an endless amount of people's opinions, and people will criticize, and it's been there and it'll always be there. And it's just one of those things that you kind of just like have to shrug off, right? Kind of just dust it off your shoulders. But if you don't, then you're being a fufu. Number 5 is that he gives up. So remember how it's not he gives up easily. He just gives up, right? So whether you give up easily or give up after a while, you're giving up. So if you give up by saying to yourself, this is too hard and so on and so forth, you're a fufu. Number 6, he doesn't take care of those around him financially. This is the big one. And you're looking at me, you're like, Dr. Spinatti, not everyone can afford to take care of other people financially. I'm like, correct. And those people are fufus. And the reason I say that is because if you make something your responsibility, then you'll find a way for you to make it happen. But if you don't make it your responsibility, if you make excuses as to why you're not able to do X, Y, and Z, then you're always going to live in that zone. You're going to live in that experience. You're going to live in that excuse. So that, because I mean, if you think about it, a warrior isn't just someone who is physically strong, but he's mentally strong. He's financially strong. He's emotionally strong. That's what a warrior is, right? You don't say a warrior in only his body. No. A warrior is someone who's dependable, someone other people can depend on. And so that's number 6. And so people who, if you cannot be a dependable person that other people can rely on financially, then guess what you become? You become selfish because now you're trying to just take care of yourself, or you're trying to take care of yourself and maybe one other person. That's not really being someone who is a warrior. So that's probably a hard one for you to swallow, but pay attention. Number 7, he is fragile. Now, Nassim Taleb, he wrote a book called Anti-Fragile, and he described the difference between someone who is fragile, someone who is resilient, and someone who is anti-fragile. And he described it like this. He said, imagine if you have a box, and on that box it says fragile, don't drop me. Okay, I'm fragile. It's kind of like glass, right? When you drop glass, it shatters. That's fragile. Resilient means it says, you can drop me, but I'm not going to break to a certain degree, and then I may break. Okay, that's resilient. Anti-fragile, the box would say, drop me as many times as you want, because the more you drop me, the stronger I become. That's anti-fragile. And so the opposite of anti-fragile is being fragile, like glass. And last but certainly not least is that he focuses on things he cannot control. And this is, by the way, according to Epictetus, this is the number 1 rule of Stoicism. Stoicism is living a life of non-complaint, but living a life that is great without allowing other things to burden you. And the number 1 rule in Stoicism is to focus only on things that you can control. And there are only 2 things that you can control, which are your thoughts and your actions. So if you are not focused on your thoughts and your actions, then you're focused on anything outside of that, then you're being a fufu. And that is it, ladies and gentlemen. That is what a fufu is. Let your Friday be an anti-fufu type of Friday, and let you be the number 1 warrior in your life, and enjoy your Friday. And until next time, and as always, keep smiling. That was great.